You're listening to Healthcare Now Radio. Stand by for This Just In, the latest in healthcare innovation and technology trends with your HIT advisor, Justin Barnes.
Thank you for tuning in and welcome to This Just In. I'm your host, Justin Barnes. In these half-hour segments, I'll bring you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. As always, we're broadcasting from the This Just In studios on the Business Radio X network as well as the Healthcare Now radio network. For this episode, my 91st episode, we're going to speak to a good friend and industry colleague, Ben Wilson. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Hey, good to be back. I think it's seventh time, long time. So excited to be here.
I know, and we kind of came up with this one show when I saw you at HIMSS. Obviously, you're a good friend. We see each other quite a bit, but you came on the show for our HIMSS, our big HIMSS show, the annual conference, and
extravaganza, I would call it.
Exactly. But you always, that one episode, you brought a lot of excitement to the show. We had a great couple of days broadcasting live, 4.5 hours each day from HIMSS.
The who's who of healthcare IT, I would say.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a very blessed opportunity. It's a ton of fun. It gets bigger every year. I actually think that we're going to inject some TV into it next year. So,
wow.
Yeah, HIMSS is just such a strong partner now in this, and they're taking the ball and running with it along with me. So it's a lot of fun. But
unfortunately,
go ahead.
I was going to say, unfortunately, you have a face for radio, but we'll deal with that later.
I was just talking about that. Somebody else the other day. It's so funny. I said, I have a face for radio. It's great. No, but you brought a lot of excitement onto that panel. You kind of walked around the whole show floor. You were the This Just In correspondent for a day, and so you went to all the different booths and you checked out all the innovations. And obviously there's a lot, and so you came on, and we had just a stellar segment, and so we had to have you back. And I know that you wanted to be back. I wanted to have you back, and you gave such a great overview while at the HIMSS annual conference. So why don't we, take a few minutes here before we dive in to see, what's happening out there. You have your finger on the pulse in healthcare and healthcare IT innovation. But before we dive in too deep in some of that, and into let your pet transfer over to us, what you're seeing. But where were you born and raised? Give a little bit of background, attend college, all that good stuff, Ben.
Well, I'm a California native. I mostly grew up in Napa Valley in the wine country in Northern California, and I went to college at Stanford, and so I stayed in Northern California. Got a degree in political science, and I always wanted to go into public service, but had these business skills, and so healthcare seemed like the perfect intersection of public and private sector, and it seemed like a good direction for me, and that's where I've been my whole career.
Yeah, no, awesome. And we obviously came up together. I met you first through Intel, and then obviously you worked with Citrix. But you have also done some startups, so give us a little bit of background on that.
Right. Well, I went to graduate school at Berkeley. I got a joint degree and an MBA and a master's in public health in the mid-'90s, the go-go.com days, and everyone was jumping into startups, and I wanted to do the same. I got a chance to work on a startup as part of a residency program during graduate school, building a business plan and pitching that company to venture capitalists, and that went very well. And so I wanted to continue that type of work. And so I jumped into a company called babycenter.com. I was the 17th employee there. And they brought me in to be their director of healthcare and run the B2B component of their company. We were, a year later, acquired by eToys and went public soon after that, and it was the 5th largest IPO of all time. And then eToys decided that the division that I ran, because it was B2B, wasn't in their business plan, so we spun that off into a separate company called Consumer Health Interactive, building e-health portals for health plans. And I became the president of that 50-person company, and grew that to over 10 very large health plan clients, and then sold it to Advanced PCS, which was a pharmacy benefit management company, which is now part of Caremark.
No.
And then jumped into a company called Cando.com, which was basically a baby center for people with disabilities, and had Ted Kennedy Jr. on the board, and it was a high-flying startup, but just the timing was bad as 2001, and we ended up closing the doors on that, and then I started a couple of small consulting firms focused on healthcare after that. And so that was my startup experience. It was really fun. A couple of them were super exciting and successful, but I have some scars as well.
Oh yeah, well, we all learn from our scars. We all have those. We've all done well in some ventures, and we all had some scars. But you really learn the most from those scars. So I know right now you're out there, and you're certainly seeing a lot of deals. I know that since you've moved on some Citrix, you're doing some consulting, looking for your next deal. So, tell me about what you're seeing out there.
Well, it's really an exciting time in digital health. Over the last 5 years, there's been hundreds of millions of dollars in investment in digital health startups. But we are seeing a bit of a slowdown right now in terms of investment, and I think that's partially just to see how this first cohort of digital health startups is doing, and what sort of value they're adding, and what sort of exits they'll be able to achieve. And then also, as we discussed at HIMSS, there's a bit of a slowdown overall, just as people are anxious about what's happening in terms of healthcare reform and value-based care and where that's going, and so where the value creation can be going forward. But there are some really interesting companies, and so it's an exciting time, and a lot of people with healthcare backgrounds, and other types of backgrounds are jumping into these companies. So it's a very diverse group, and it's exciting to see them grow.
Yeah. So and obviously you've been talking to some startups. You've been talking to investors in Silicon Valley. What are some of the trends that you're seeing out there?
Well, the hot investment areas are a lot around chronic disease, and behavioral health is the hottest area right now. You've got companies like Omada and Ginger.io, and you've got big investors like GE Ventures and Kaiser Permanente Ventures, all investing in those types of companies. Also, diabetes has been a hot area for a while. And you've got companies like Livongo and Gluco in those areas. And so I would say diabetes is the largest, and then there are some applications that are broad in terms of addressing multiple chronic diseases, and then there are some that are very focused. But the largest single sort of focus area, I think, is diabetes, and that's been a hot area for a while. And then right now, the hottest area is behavioral health.
Yeah. No, it's so. I guess let's dive into that just a little bit. Well, actually, what are the categories? I mean, because behavioral health is, I know it's a growing market. I know my friends are kind of getting into it a little bit. I'm even watching funding from Capitol Hill shift that direction as well. So there's a lot more. That's why there's a lot of investment. There's also a lot of a lot more focus from our government, rightfully so, in that direction.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I think if you look globally at healthcare reform and healthcare policy, countries other than the U.S. invest a lot more in social programs, in which a lot of those are mental health, behavioral health type programs, because that's sort of upstream. People whose lives are falling apart tend to have health issues down the road, right? And so, but the U.S. doesn't have that same amount of investment upstream, and so there is, especially in the U.S., sort of an opportunity for the private sector to fill that gap, and so that's why you're seeing a lot of investment and a lot of opportunity in that area. Also, technology lends itself really well to behavioral health. Now, that said, if you look at the different behavioral health companies, they sort of define behavioral health very differently. So just to dig down just a little bit on this, if you look at like an Omada, this probably the company that has the most progress, the most investment, the most well-known investors involved, but they sort of define behavioral health as a way to manage chronic disease. So they use behavioral health techniques to change behavior to help people to improve their day-to-day lives and thus better manage their chronic disease. And so that's the way that they're defining the category. A company like Ginger.io, though, they are selling employers a service where they're allowing employees to access mental health professionals remotely. And so that their approach is very different. It's about addressing people's day-to-day anxieties and be able to have a therapist that they can talk to remotely using their computer, whether it's in a conference room or at their desk or in their office or at home. So they define it very differently. Now, if you look at a company called like Happify, Happify is a gamified behavioral health platform where it helps you to feel better and to ward off any sort of feeling bad about yourself and depression using these games and trying to uplift you and bring some joy into your life. So that all these companies, I was surprised at how differently they're defining the category.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. So for those just tuning in, we're speaking with my good friend Ben Wilson, who's giving us a great update across the industry of different innovations and companies that are growing. So what are some of the companies that are making the most progress? You just covered a couple, but give me a few more. It's some of the categories kind of as well.
Yeah. Let me because I just covered behavioral health there. The other big category is diabetes. So let's go into that.
Yeah.
The biggest player in diabetes is a company called Livongo. And many of you, this is a company that's run by Glenn Tolman. Many of you may know him for one of the founders of Allscripts and good friend of Barack Obama, and actually long time a person who's contributed a lot of his money to pediatric diabetes. So he's had an interest in this in a long time. Seven Wires is his investment firm. There was one of the early investors in this. So it includes Lee Shapiro, also of Allscripts fame, and so they have they brought together also Steve Schwartz is there as well as the.
Great.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
And yeah, the EMR world is very small, and so. So they brought back sort of the MVPs from Allscripts for this venture. So they have a proprietary device for testing your blood sugar and a proprietary glucometer and with proprietary strips. And so they provide a diabetes management service, and they're selling that service to employers and to payers, and so in addition to having this device which gives you immediate feedback, they also have an app in which you can get health information and other information, educate yourself about how to better manage your diabetes. They have coaching, so they have actual live people that can reach out to you and people you can talk to or to chat with, and they have some big investors, including Kleiner Perkins, involved, and they've recently done a D series round. I think it's around 95. So they've raised about $95 million. So they're sort of the big gorilla in the space, and have made the most progress.
Yeah.
There's also there's also a company called Gluco. They've been around a bit longer, but they've only done a C round. They don't seem to have the broad set of services nor the level of funding that Livongo has. There's a company called Yes Health, which I know less about, but their focus is a lot more on coaching. The founder is a woman who had a physician coach as she was growing up that helped her to manage her diabetes. And then there's a company called Virta, and they have like an online diabetes clinic. So it's sort of like a destination online where you can get diabetes services. So there's lots of different approaches in that category. Some other categories that we're seeing, of course, there have been fitness apps. Those are making I haven't seen some big companies, beyond sort of the obvious Fitbit and so forth, the hardware companies, but I haven't seen too many fitness apps that are, making a huge splash. Map My Run and things like that are been around for a while, but aren't big companies. Home care seems to be another area. There's a company called CareLinks. They're kind of like an Uber for home care, for non-clinical home care, that is. So they have people that help you with your activities of daily living and provide support. And their model could be interesting if they could be working with all kinds of online health management tools to provide sort of the last mile of support. And so they could complement some of these other providers potentially. One other, I think, key category I want to cover is precision medicine. You see it. This is a huge trend. We talked about this at HIMSS. The ability to create custom medicine and create personalized therapies for patients using their DNA and their chemical makeup. And so there's a company called SciAps, which has had a C round of investment. They're growing really fast. I've seen that they're hiring a whole new level of executives and growing really fast and seem to be owning the category. So I would say those companies are some that I think are some of the best. One other is Doximity. They seem to already own the sort of social network category for healthcare professionals. They're sort of like a LinkedIn for doctors, and they seem to own that, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of competition for that. They've made so much progress. It's one of those things where critical mass is so important, and so it's hard. There are big barriers to entry for anyone else to really catch up, and they seem to be doing really well as well.
That's excellent. So just wrapping up this aspect, 'cause I do want to talk about some funding and investment, but any other early stage companies that you believe have promise?
There's a company called Life Dojo that I really like. They are sort of a holistic health and wellness. They sort of have a new age sort of feel to them. They focus a lot on meditation and yoga and sort of alternative ways to improve your well-being and your health and wellness. And they seem to, and employers really seem to like what they have to offer. There's also a couple of remote eye care companies. One is called Opternative, where you can do a retinal exam using your phone, and so that could really drive down the cost of eye exams and eye care, and allow for people, especially if you start to think about rural areas or third world countries, what have you, something like that could add significant value. And then there's a company called Progeny, which is an in vitro fertilization management service, and this is such an important service for people, especially people who have higher incomes spend a lot of money here, and it's something that's a big distraction if you're trying to get pregnant and but you're trying to do your work and have a career, that can be a big distraction. So if you could have a service to help you to be more efficient in getting pregnant and to make that process less complicated and to have fewer complications and to have to spend less time recovering, or if they can help you to avoid having quadruplets, there's a lot of value there. So yeah, those are companies I think are very exciting.
Cool. No, I agree. So talk about a little bit about the digital health startup funding. What are you seeing out there?
I think it's been good. I think it's been a lot, and so I think it's created a little bit of fatigue in the market. If you're a health plan or you're a health system, every day you have these well-funded digital health startups coming to you to do these innovation programs, and so you have hundreds of health systems and tens of health plans doing these pilot programs with all these different digital health startups, and so then it's hard for anyone to get traction, and so I think there's a little bit of fatigue in the market, and so that has hurt the category a bit. But on the other hand, I think we're starting to see the fruits of those investments, the Livongos of the world, starting to make some good progress and adding some real value to the market. And so I think we're at an interesting turning point right now. And then I also think that the level of investment has drawn in some of the bigger players as well. There are rumors out there that Apple has a non-touch glucometer, so you don't have to prick your finger anymore. It's a laser-based or a sensor-based system, and that you can just hold up to your arm and read your blood sugar. Something like that would really turn the whole market upside down, and so I wonder what would happen to all these diabetes plays that are in the market. Either they have to work with Apple, or which most of them have an iOS app, of course, but or they their business model would have to change. So I think it's a very interesting time.
Yeah, so shifting gears a little bit, and I agree with you, this is a very interesting time. And you did this a little bit before when you were working with Intel, but how do you see traditional technology companies working with digital health startups?
Well, one trend I'm seeing is that companies like Microsoft and Intel and then also some of the health plans like Humana are hiring people to do business development with the digital health startup community, and to see what their relationship should be with these companies, and to build and to see if that for example a Microsoft would have an interest in these digital health companies building their applications on Azure, and so they're trying to build a community. Amazon has been very aggressive in this area. They have regular meetings here in the Silicon Valley where they're not just in healthcare but across all technology companies. But they do have a specific focus on healthcare. But they're asking all technology companies to build these relationships and to give them incentives and to build on Amazon Web Services, rather than on Azure or Google.
Yep. No, I've seen these departments get spun up, and I know that I don't have enough time today, but we also talked about how health systems are doing this as well. They're putting together these little ecosystems or little teams to do outreach and to work with the innovators in our communities and innovators across the country. So very, very cool. But got about 30 seconds left, and I always like to ask this question of my guests. What is your favorite place to get or be inspired?
You know, I I play music. I'm a songwriter and a singer, songwriter. And so when I'm playing music, it's a very creative time for me, and business ideas come to me left and right when I'm playing my guitar. There's some sort of trance that I go into, and there's something about my synapses sort of open up, and so that's a time when I'm probably most inspired.
Excellent. Yeah, actually, aren't you playing around Menlo Park? Don't you? I see that posted. So how often do you play?
I'm trying to play once a month. There's a local cafe here called Cafe Zoe,
Yeah.
and so I'm playing there on May 4th. If anyone's in the Silicon Valley, come on by. I appreciate that.
Very, very cool. Ben, thank you very much for joining us today, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to give us kind of lay the land, certainly what's happening in Silicon Valley and other places of great innovation. I always appreciate you joining the show. And thank you, everyone, for listening and joining us today. Please tune in weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific. As always, you can track me on Twitter at HIT Advisor and use the hashtag #ThisJustIn so we can respond to your comments from the show. In addition, all my content will be posted on my website at justinbarnes.com. Thanks, everyone. Have a terrific week.